Alright, today we are watching a program called Diffusion and Osmosis by the Encyclopedia Britannica, publication date 1973. This one is pretty straightforward, so let's just dive in. Should I establish that I already know what these are, or should I just let you guys learn for yourselves? I don't know. I feel like I just need to give, my personal definition of these things before we really get into it. So diffusion is just a particle going from high concentration to low concentration within a solution. But osmosis is specifically water balancing out over, semi-permeable membranes. So I feel like I understand what we're about to watch, but let's see. Let's see if I actually have any understanding of this. This work may not be transmitted by television or other devices or processes nor copied, recast, transformed, or adapted in any manner in whole or in part without a license. Oof. I don't know if I have one of those. Wow, that was a pretty cool shot. What are we looking at? That's a pretty cool shot. See, usually I watch stuff from the 40s to the 60s, so I don't really get cool film techniques like that. But what we just watched was pretty cool. I don't even know what that was. Was that just the intro scene for Encyclopedia Britannica? Because that seemed like Diffusion that we just watched. So that seemed like it was pertinent to this film, but I don't know. This music is kind of wild though. This is that experimental synth music of the 70s for sure. Wow, just the visuals and the sound together, this really is an audio-visual experience. Even though we're just supposed to be learning something plain like diffusion and osmosis, this was presumably being shown in a classroom somewhere. But even still, we're being treated to some very impressive visuals and some very experimental music, I guess. Wow, see, this is another really awesome shot. I hope that they explain all of these later, but I'm already having a good time just with these visuals. That was really cool. But let's see. Produced by Encyclopedia Britannica Educational Corporation, in collaboration with Gabor Szabo, PhD, Assistant Professor, Department of Physiology. So that's our expert for this program, Gabor Szabo. That's a very interesting name, to be honest. But they're from the Department of Physiology, University of California, Los Angeles. So many of these come from the University of California. And I think that's because California was where all this media production was taking place. So I guess it makes sense for them to reach out to local experts before going across the country. Dude, this music is honestly, I don't know if I would have felt good about showing this in a classroom. This is some really eerie music. Alright, number 1, random movement. I have not heard a narrator yet. I don't know if this has a narrator or if this is silent, but let's just keep going. Dude, the music, I'm sorry I keep hitting on it, but this music is just blowing my mind right now.
Movement. Most movement we're aware of.
Well, okay, so we do have a narrator, and this is the second or third female narrator we've ever had on this channel. This is interesting. I was not expecting this, but this is good. This is interesting. This is different.
Is organized, orderly, and follows definite paths.
Man, is this a recycled shot from Army Ants? Maybe. We just watched that recently, didn't we? Army Ants? Maybe. I don't remember the shot, though.
In contrast, the movement of these beads is unorganized.
There's so much movement on screen that I just lost all resolution. It just turned into, blocks of pixels.
Random.
At least the musical cue for this fits. This is definitely also random sounding music.
Random movement is typical of very small particles, such as smoke. With the help of a special apparatus, we can see the random movement of smoke particles in still air.
Really? You can actually just see smoke particles through a microscope? Is that real? I did not think you'd be able to see little particles bubbling around like this. That's crazy. Is that just smoke? He's just looking at smoke under a microscope?
The same kind of random movement occurs in paint particles in liquid. In milk droplets,
That's funny because I guess what they're getting at is just like everything at a microscopic scale is always jittering around. Nothing is perfectly still, which is kind of just what temperature is, or average kinetic energy. So I understand why this is happening, but what I think they're doing here is they're trying to explain to you how things diffuse through solutions or whatever, because every single individual atom or molecule or compound is just jittering about in solution. Like that's how they move and how they distribute themselves evenly and randomly within a volume. I think that's what they're trying to get at here with explaining this to us.
and even within living cells. These particles move.
This is like a crazy shot. Like I feel like I watched an episode of the Journey to the Microcosmos where something very similar was mentioned, and I feel like what we just saw under the microscope here is actually like a really amazing thing to happen. I don't know. I can't describe it because it was a very long time ago that I watched that video, but I feel like this little thing that we're seeing moving around in this protozoa or whatever is like a very interesting thing if you actually know about it.
Because they are being bombarded on all sides by even smaller particles, molecules, which we can't see. This model helps explain what we saw under the microscope.
Dude, I wish I could make this the thumbnail, but you would not be able to tell what's going on. I wish I could make this like series of moving images the thumbnail, because I feel like that explains it a lot.
The beads represent molecules.
Yeah, this actually is a very good like physical representation of things scaled way down. I don't know how they built this, but it is getting the point across that molecules move like this.
And the movement of the beads illustrates the way molecules move.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I agree.
The large blue bead is being pushed about by collisions with many small ones.
This actually is very interesting. Maybe I'll make this the thumbnail, but like this is very, very good. This is just very, very illustrative of what happens. Like I am actually just impressed with how good this illustrates the concepts that we are trying to be taught right now.
In a similar way, the large milk droplets are being pushed about by many collisions with invisible molecules of water.
That's funny. So these are milk droplets? They're all green. That's funny.
Molecules move because they have kinetic energy.
Kinetic energy, average kinetic energy, maybe even.
Energy of motion. What we call temperature is, in
Oh man, okay. I'm about to pat myself on the back for this one.
fact, a measure of the kinetic energy of molecules.
The average kinetic energy of molecules. Yeah, see, I feel like if I saw this in school, I would understand it immediately. Like, I already understand it, but like, even if I didn't, I feel like this is actually doing a really good job of illustrating what they're trying to communicate to us.
Molecules move faster as temperature rises. Because they have kinetic energy, then, molecules are in continuous random movement.
Okay, so that was just random movement. Oh, I guess that was the title card. So yeah, okay. That was random movement. Now we're moving on to diffusion. So the process of diffusion can only be understood if you already understood how particles move randomly through solutions. So that's good. That's good that we're building up to diffusion and osmosis.
When molecules are closely packed together, there will be many collisions.
I know I've already said it, but like just the fact that this is a physical representation of particles of like air or whatever, like I'm so impressed by how realistic this actually looks or seems and how well it communicates the concept of particles in air.
The movement of a specially marked molecule shows that each molecule stays more or less in place until more space becomes available.
Whoa, was that the opening shot? Dude, I just lost all resolution in my image when that happened. I hope you guys watched the same thing that I just watched because that was just like like the computer's own mind just got fried by trying to compress all those balls.
The movement of molecules from where
Yeah, my poor computer screen trying to display this thing on screen right now.
they're concentrated to where they're less concentrated is called diffusion.
I can't even tell if they're doing some sort of like special effect on this now or if this is just so so deep fried.
In these experiments,
Oh, that was an effect. They were doing some sort of mosaic effect, but it didn't hit.
diffusion of molecules is indicated by the spreading color.
This is a really cool shot. I'm trying to figure out what this even is. Like, obviously this is a water droplet, but like how do you get this shot? I don't even know what I'm looking at really besides a water droplet.
Diffusion occurs when the collisions among closely packed molecules causes them to move apart.
Diffusion occurs when the impacts between molecules causes them to move apart. See, I feel like there's multiple different ways to understand something like this. That's a fair way to describe it. I think of diffusion a little bit differently. I feel like diffusion makes more sense when you think of all their motion as random. And it's just like, well, if they're all collected over here, but they're moving randomly, then eventually they will be evenly distributed because they are moving randomly in a space that's open. I feel like what they just said does make sense, but in a different way than how I think of things.
Eventually, the molecules become evenly distributed throughout the available space.
Dude, my poor computer screen, like I can't tell out, I can't make anything out. This is just like pretty much static to me.
The same thing happens when more than one substance is involved.
You know, these are like really cool demonstrations too. Like I can't quite tell how they're doing this. Like what is this on? It must be on like a sheet that's being vibrated or something. It's really cool to get to see diffusion like physically actually happen. Like I feel like that actually communicates the lesson so much better than like animation ever would have. So I really do appreciate this. I'm actually very impressed by the educational value of what I'm witnessing.
Each substance diffuses from where it's concentrated to where it's less concentrated. Sometimes moving particles will collide with a barrier.
What a way to demonstrate that moving particles will collide with a barrier, just to show us a race car crashing. Like, I guess that communicates the idea, but like, that's a bit more stylistic again than I would have expected.
Some barriers block the movement of particles. Others allow some or all of the particles to move through them.
Dude, see, like, how are they doing this? Like, this is a physical representation of osmosis or diffusion through a membrane happening. So, like, how are they doing this? Like, because these are real physical balls that they're vibrating somehow. I don't understand how they're actually doing this. It's amazing, though. It really is. Like, it really is communicating, like, physics at a macro scale. The ground must be vibrating. That's the only thing I can think of is, like, there must be just, like, waves coming from beneath.
A barrier that allows particles to move through it is called permeable. Particles can move through permeable barriers in both directions. Living cells, too, are surrounded by barriers, which keep the material inside the cell from mixing with the material outside.
Yeah, again, if I'm a kid in school, I like perfectly understand what's happening now, you know? Like, I feel like this really is doing a good job of teaching me.
In cells, the barriers are very thin membranes which form part of the cell wall. Diffusion of molecules through membranes is essential to life.
Diffusion of molecules through membranes is essential. Yeah, pretty much. That is how all cells take in nutrients and energy and how they excrete waste. So yeah, I guess that is fair.
We can get some clues about the behavior of membranes from an experiment with iodine and starch.
Iodine and starch. Interesting. Okay, I have not heard of this experiment before, so this should be interesting.
Here's what happens when iodine and starch combine.
Huh, interesting. Oh, so this was the demonstration that they showed us at the very beginning. Cool, so we're getting to understand what that was.
The dish is divided by an artificial membrane which simulates a cell membrane.
Whoa, hang on. So there actually is like a membrane that allows these to travel between them. That's crazy. I don't know I don't know how it holds up the water pressure but still allows it to pass through. I guess it's not water pressure, but whatever it is, the liquid pressure. This is cool, though. You are seeing the iodine travel through the permeable membrane into the starch solution. But what's interesting is you're not seeing it move in the opposite direction either.
The dark substance appears on only one side.
But again, yeah, you can even see like the current within this water just based on these like fragments of solution or whatever it is. The solvent, I don't know, the reactant, the reagent, I don't know what is being produced, but like whatever it is, like we can see the movement of the particles with it.
Because only the iodine molecules are small enough to pass through the membrane.
All right, it's interesting. That makes sense. So this is a sort of semi-selective permeable barrier.
The largest starch molecules are blocked.
See, this is just like the perfect physical representation of that. Like there is no better way to show what just happened. You know, I feel like this is so good.
The membranes of living cells behave in a similar way. This beaker contains living yeast cells. This beaker, cells that have been killed.
Well, now he just contaminated them, so they both have living yeast cells now. Oh, well, I guess whatever. He's mixing them anyway.
The cells are now soaked in dye.
So hang on, they're soaking the cells in dye. So the living cells might actually take in some of the dye because they are exchanging things between their outside, but the dead cells probably won't because they are not operating their membranes still, or maybe it's vice versa, I don't know. But I think that's the demonstration that they're giving us right now, is some of those cells are going to absorb the dye and some aren't. But let's see.
After a time, dye has stained the dead cells.
Oh, man, see, I was wrong. So dye stained the dead cells because the dead cells are not maintaining their own homeostasis. Okay, so the white cells, the living cells, are still operating these organelles that pump out waste products or things that they don't want. So even if they are diffusing into the cell, they still have the ability to pump these, things out of their cells. But the dead cells do not have that ability because they're dead. So diffusion is taking place within their cells, but they don't have a way of counteracting that diffusion. So they ended up absorbing the red, whereas the living ones were able to excrete the red and maintain their color, I guess. That's just my read of this.
Has stained the dead cells. But the living cells have remained clear. That's because living cells allow only essential substances to diffuse through the membranes, while other substances are kept out.
Well, there's like two ways it could work. Either the living cell prevents it from even diffusing into its membrane, or the living cell has something inside of it that captures these things that it doesn't want and it sends them back out. So there's two different ways, but I guess that's a much more simpler way for teaching school children, I guess.
In other words, cell membranes are selectively permeable.
Selectively permeable. There's another good term that I feel like I already brought up. Hang on, though. I just got to appreciate the visual that we're looking at right now. These protozoa, or whatever they are, like just the color of this shot. Like not even like the subject or anything, but just the color of this microscope footage is like actually pretty beautiful. Like there's red, blue, and green. Usually you don't get all these colors in one microscope shot. So this is just a very, very pretty microscope footage right here.
If they were not, nutrients could not get into the cell, and waste products could not get out.
So hang on, what are we watching right now? This is like, I don't even know. This might be like a protozoa again or something, but it's very interesting. It's hard to tell based on the, zoom, the macro aspect.
The most common substance diffusing in and out of cells is water. The diffusion of water through a selectively permeable membrane is
Oh,
called
osmosis. Okay, so osmosis is specifically the diffusion of water through a selectively permeable membrane. So I guess I didn't fully understand it when I tried to summarize it earlier. I didn't understand that it was specifically water, but I think I did sort of say something about that.
is called osmosis.
Yeah, there you go, osmosis.
We can see what happens in osmosis in an experiment that imitates what happens in living cells. The thistle tube contains a dyed sugar solution. The dish, water.
Honestly, I gotta say it, like the editing that I just witnessed, I know that was like not impressive editing by today's standards, but like the speed of the cuts and everything, that was a much more modern edit than most of the other stuff I've watched on this channel. Just those very quick shots of his hands doing things, that was totally unlike most of the other programs I've watched on this channel. So I have to note and I have to appreciate the changing editing style that I just witnessed right here.
A selectively permeable membrane separates the water from the dyed sugar. Within a few minutes...
So interesting. So there's a selectively permeable membrane. Oh, I get it. So inside of this thing, there is something like so incredibly salty that the water is drawn through the selectively permeable membrane into this, even though it's bringing it higher up. Like the pressure of osmosis or the pressure of the difference in the salinity is so strong that it's causing the water to go into this thing and fill it up. That's crazy.
The water level has risen in the tube, but none of the dyed sugar has entered the dish. Water diffused into the tube.
That is crazy. That's crazy how the water goes all the way up. Like I just would not expect there to be enough pressure to do that. But I guess so. I don't know.
Because more water molecules hit openings in the membrane from this side, where the water is concentrated, than from this side, where both water and dyed sugar hit the membrane.
Yeah, but what I'm curious about is like, how does the water in the tube raise above the water in the normal dish? Like, isn't that based on the atmospheric pressure? I don't understand why the water would rise higher than the actual water in the surroundings. I don't get that. Even though I understand the osmosis between them, the actual exchange, I don't get how the pressure works. That's possible.
Therefore, more water will move in this direction than in this direction.
Yeah, that part makes sense. I just don't know how it fills up, you know?
So water...
Yeah, like, how does it go above the level that it was already at? Like, that seems extra special to me.
So water, like other substances, diffuses from where it is concentrated to where it is less concentrated.
What is providing the force that is lifting this water? Like, obviously the atmosphere pushing down on the surface of the water here, maybe, but I don't think it would push it that high up. Diffusion and osmosis in living organisms. All right, so we're finally putting it all together. We learned about diffusion, we learned about osmosis. Now it's time to apply this framework of understanding to a real living thing. So let's see.
In living organisms, even small concentration differences can have dramatic effects. A time-lapse camera will help us...
Oh man, I love that we're getting to see a time-lapse camera. Like, oh man, like I can't tell you guys how many time-lapses we've seen over this channel, and I've never gotten to see the cameras that actually make them. So this is so cool to me that we're actually seeing like what the time-lapse camera looked like. Wow, okay, cool. I gotta keep this in the back of my mind for the next time I see a time-lapse in one of these old programs, because I will think about this. That's awesome.
Will help us see what happens when the soil around plants dries.
Yeah, honestly, I could have told you what would happen.
The leaves wilt because water diffuses out of the cells.
Is that true? Does water really travel from inside the plant back into the ground when the ground dries? I didn't think that was the case. I thought they would just not take up any more water. I didn't know they would actually actively lose water to the dry ground.
The same thing happens to red onion cells, which have been soaked in a strong salt solution. Water diffuses from inside the cell to the outside.
Water diffuses from the inside to the outside. So what we're seeing is these cells emptying out? Is that what we're seeing?
Now the salt water is being washed away by pure water, making the water concentration.
Wow, that was a very cool visual, actually. The fact that all these little things just formed circles, that's pretty cool.
Higher outside the cell than inside.
Wow, okay, I get it, I get what happened. So yeah, oh wow, that is interesting. I want to explain it, but I feel like you guys understand enough too.
Water diffusing into cells creates an outward pressure which helps plants to remain stiff and upright. When water diffuses into many cells at the same time, it can exert a powerful force. Here, dry beans are being mixed in with wet plaster, which is then allowed to harden.
I don't know what they're making, but I've never heard of this meal before. Dry beans and plaster? I just don't know what we're doing.
Water will diffuse into the dry beans.
Huh, so I guess it just kind of disintegrated? I don't know. I don't know if that really teaches me much. So were the beans absorbing the water and they were growing, so they were breaking the plaster open? Was that the point of that? I think it was, but I don't know.
Plants use the force of osmosis in many of their life processes.
Dude, that little sound effect, like, I love the sounds in this. Like, I know the music was a little weird to begin with, but I love the experimental, like, soundscape that they create in these old programs. Dude, the sounds, I love the sounds.
In animals, too.
So hang on, so plants use osmosis to move? Is that what they were claiming? So you would flood a place with salt or water and you would hope that osmosis, I don't know, I don't quite understand how that would work. I feel like I could work it out in my own head if I just had time, but like, I feel like they just kind of left that unexplained.
Many essential functions.
Whoa, this is a crazy fish. What is this? What are these? Boxer fish? There's some sort of fish that's invasive. I don't know what it is.
Many essential functions depend on diffusion. A fish obtains oxygen through its gills. An unborn child.
Whoa, this is a crazy image right here. Is this real or is this like an artistic rendering?
An unborn child gets its life-giving nutrients through the mother's placenta.
This has to be like a model or something, right? This isn't like an actual unborn human. I don't know. I really hope so. I really hope it's a model, not an unborn human.
We live because deep in our lungs, oxygen diffuses from the air into the blood. And in our kidneys, blood is purified in part by the diffusion of wastes out of the blood.
You know, this is doing a really good job of illustrating to me like how osmosis and diffusion is affecting pretty much every aspect of life. Like there are so many different mechanisms of biology that use this very simple process to accomplish some very complex goals.
In some ways, then, most life processes depend in part on diffusion and osmosis.
Yeah, you could say that. You know, I guess that is something I learned today. Like, I already knew that life did depend on diffusion and osmosis, but this has definitely provided some more examples for that.
Two of the most dynamic mechanisms of life.
Is this more pea plant time-lapse footage? There is already so much time-lapse footage of pea plants on this channel. I can't believe there's even more of it now. This is probably the first pea time-lapse that's in color though. Or was the first one in color? I think it was, but I think it was just very dim. But this is actual color.
Here are some ways in which people make use of diffusion and osmosis. How does spraying vegetables keep them fresh?
That's funny. That's a funny example because like I feel like that's very just normal and just like understood just from a basic perspective. Like yes, they're dry and spraying them with water lets water diffuse in rather than water diffuse out.
Why does salt act as a weed killer?
I think that's so funny though. People do not use salt like this anymore. But yeah, you can just salt weeds and kill them pretty much instantly by denying them the ability to intake water. When their environment is saltier than their own bodies, then water will osmosis out of their bodies into the environment. And that's what you're doing by putting salt there, is you're creating a greater salinity on one side of the membrane versus the other. It's funny to see that back then people were actually using just literal salt for killing weeds. I think the problem with using salt to kill weeds is then like that soil is just salty forever and then nothing grows in it. But I guess if it's like your driveway or whatever, you don't care about that.
How does sugar preserve fruit from bacteria?
Preserve fruit from bacteria. So I guess if you put salt on fruit, the water in the fruit will osmosis out into the salt. So there will be less water in the fruit for the bacteria to subsist on. Interesting.
A more complex use of diffusion helps to save lives.
Oh man, I feel like I should be able to guess this, but I don't. Is this like an iron lung or something?
This woman's blood has to be purified by a kidney machine.
Oh, it's a kidney machine. That's crazy. So she is just constantly pumping her blood into this machine and back into her body. That's like, I don't know. I don't know if we were meant to do that.
Because her own kidneys have failed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if both your kidneys fail, like, you're just supposed to die. I know that's, like, really awful of me to say, but, like, I don't know. Like, this is just honestly, like, freaking me out. Seeing these tubes of blood going in and out of a machine, I don't know. This is, like, unnatural. Like, good for us. Good for humans for figuring out how to survive with no working kidneys, but this is just kind of freaky at the same time. It's just, like, how much blood is in these tubes? That's just crazy.
Her blood, containing many waste products, flows from her body into a coil made of an artificial membrane. A salt solution continually flows across the membrane. Why do waste products...
Hang on, so a salt solution flows over the membranes. So you have your blood in this tube and surrounded by a semi-permeable barrier, and then that's surrounded by a salty solution. So you're gonna have water from your blood going into the salty solution, and then all you're gonna get in the blood tube is like all the not water. I don't get how this cleans blood to be put back into your system, but I guess let's see.
Why do waste products diffuse from the blood into the salt solution?
Oh, okay, so the waste products diffuse out of the blood into the salt solution. So I guess the salt solution is just lower in concentration than the blood is for these specific molecules or something? That would be my guess. I'm still thinking about the direction that water would be traveling, but is there even water in your blood? There must be, right? There has to be water in your blood. Why wouldn't the water in your blood diffuse out? Is there water in blood or no? Am I just making that up? It just seems like there should be some water somehow in your blood. I don't know how, because I know blood is just like plasma or whatever, but like, is there not water in that? But I guess the dirty things in your blood are also going to diffuse out into the salt solution. I think that's the important lesson here. That was the end. That was a very anticlimactic end. I really thought something like was gonna happen. I feel like they left us on a cliffhanger. I feel like they were about to describe how this actually works, but they didn't. That's so weird. All right, well, let's look at who made this. The producer is Charles L. Finance. I definitely recognize that name. We've definitely read Charles L. Finance before. He must have worked for Encyclopedia Britannica. But then we have the assistant cameraman, Bob Vineyard. That's an interesting interesting last name. The editor was Carolyn Hicks. The music was Gary Demos. Good for Gary. Gary was definitely into experimenting back then. And then we have the consulting biologists was Carrie Liu and Bruce Clayton with the Los Angeles State County Arboretum and the Maryland of the Pacific, Marine Land of the Pacific. Interesting. Okay, so that was diffusion and osmosis. Honestly, even though I felt like I understood these concepts before watching this, I feel like I definitely understand them more now having watched this. So I just got to appreciate that this was an actually like educational experience for me. I always appreciate when I learn something new, and getting to see the physical movement of those molecules was just like giving my brain a visual understanding that I didn't really have before. So I definitely appreciate the visuals that were presented to us. Like this was an impressive production to say the least. This is like pretty much everything that you need to understand at least the basics of diffusion and osmosis. Like I really do stand by the teachers that showed this to their classroom full of kids. Like this is pretty much the most effective method I can imagine for teaching somebody this exact information. I can't imagine a better way of giving someone this knowledge. You know, this is like the best way to package this knowledge I've ever really seen. Like go on YouTube right now and look up other videos on diffusion and osmosis, and I guarantee you this one is far better than any of those. So yeah, I truly appreciate what we just watched, and I hope you all did too. If you did and you would like to help support what I do here, you can follow the link in the description that'll take you over to the Internet Archive. The Internet Archive is where I get all these old programs from, so if you want to support me, donate to them. And with that, I think we're ready to cut to black.